Hello Midnights. Next up, the deep roots of the Jinn, a history of belief. Let us know where you are listening from and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for tuning in. Quote, I have often thought that the Jabberwock was not a real dragon, but a Jinn. By H.P. Lovecraft, Supernatural Horror in Literature. The desert wind, an ancient whisper, carries tales of beings unseen, of a world interwoven with our own yet separated by a veil of perception. Among these, few evoke as much mystique and theological debate as the Jinn. More than mere spirits or demons, the Jinn, as understood within a significant spiritual tradition, represent a distinct creation, endowed with free will and a complex existence that profoundly challenges human-centric notions of intelligence and morality. To delve into the Jinn is to explore the very boundaries of the known, to contemplate the unseen dimensions of creation, and to confront the limitations of our own understanding. The concept of the Jinn isn't a monolithic one, nor did it emerge solely with one major faith. Its roots stretch deep into ancient Middle Eastern cultures, drawing influences from very early civilizations and pre-Islamic Arabian folklore. This extensive historical lineage demonstrates a continuous human preoccupation with unseen forces and entities that share our world but operate on different planes of existence, adapting and evolving with changing societal beliefs. The earliest echoes of Jinn-like entities can be found in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, dating back thousands of years. Here, proto-Jinn were often depicted as powerful nature spirits, associated with wind, fire, and even water. These were not typically anthropomorphic gods, but rather pervasive forces that inhabited the natural world. They were largely formless, or would manifest as destructive storms, swirling dust devils, or elusive whispers carried on the wind, phenomena that were both powerful and intangible, mirroring the perceived nature of these spirits. These elemental spirits, while sometimes held in reverence as lesser deities, inspired both fear and awe due to their potential for chaos and destruction, for example, devastating floods or droughts, as well as their capacity to influence harvests and natural phenomena, for example, bringing life-giving rain. Their unpredictable nature mirrored the often harsh and unpredictable environment of the ancient Near East, leading people to attribute natural disasters and blessings to their capricious wills. Rituals and offerings were made to appease or invoke them, underscoring the belief in their direct influence on human life. Over time, as early civilizations evolved, these entities began to take on more defined, often animalistic or human-like, features. They could be benevolent protectors, like the colossal guardian figures found in ancient palaces, meant to ward off evil, or malevolent demons causing illness and misfortune, such as fearsome winged entities associated with pestilence and destructive winds, often invoked in protective spells. The iconography of these figures often combine animalistic power with human intelligence, suggesting beings that bridge the gap between the wild, untamed forces of nature and the ordered world of human civilization. The concept of powerful, unseen entities serving higher powers or acting as intermediaries between the human and divine realms was firmly established, influencing the wider region through cultural diffusion and trade routes that crisscrossed the ancient world, carrying these beliefs far beyond their points of origin, eventually reaching the Arabian Peninsula. Before the advent of a major monotheistic faith, the Arabian Peninsula was a vibrant tapestry of polytheistic beliefs: animism, the belief that natural objects and phenomena have a soul, and ancestor veneration. Jinn were a prominent and palpable feature of this spiritual landscape, deeply embedded in the daily lives and imaginations of the nomadic tribal groups and settled urban populations. They were widely believed to inhabit desolate places, such as vast deserts, crumbling ruins, deep wells, and dark corners of human dwellings. These were often places where human civilization thinned out, making them ideal perceived habitats for unseen beings, and thus places to be approached with caution. Any unexplained misfortune, a sudden illness, a lost camel, a mental affliction, or an accident, was often attributed to the malevolent interference of a Jinn, who might have been offended or simply capricious. This pervasive fear led to a plethora of superstitious practices aimed at averting their wrath, including the recitation of specific incantations, the wearing of amulets, often inscribed with protective symbols or verses from ancient traditions, offering sacrifices at particular sites, like ancient stones, trees, or hidden caves thought to be Jinn dwellings, or simply avoiding places they were believed to frequent, especially at night when their power was thought to be strongest. The fear of being struck by a Jinn, resulting in paralysis, madness, or sudden death, was a common anxiety that shaped daily routines and travel. However, the relationship with Jinn was far more nuanced than simple dread. In some regions, ancient inscriptions occasionally use terms for spirit and deity interchangeably, suggesting a form of reverence or at least a recognition of their potent influence, often in localized cults. This indicates a spectrum of belief, where some jinn were considered powerful enough to warrant a form of worship or propitiation, embodying specific localized powers or influences. Early Arabian people also believed that jinn could be benevolent, forming pacts with humans, offering protection, guiding travelers lost in the desert, and even engaging in romantic or intimate relationships with mortals. These pacts often involved a reciprocal relationship, where the human would offer devotion, specific rituals, or a promise of loyalty in exchange for the jinn's aid. Perhaps most significantly, jinn were seen as the ultimate source of inspiration and hidden knowledge, particularly for those with a heightened spiritual sensitivity. Poets and diviners often claimed their extraordinary insights, prophetic visions, and eloquent verses were gifted to them by a friendly spirit companion or a wise female jinn. This belief bestowed immense prestige and authority upon these individuals, as their words were seen as conduits to a higher, hidden truth. These jinn were seen as brokers of higher knowledge, capable of revealing secrets of the past and future, often through a form of eavesdropping on celestial conversations, providing legal judgments, and settling complex tribal disputes through their human intermediaries. Legends also credited jinn with extraordinary feats of construction, such as the building of ancient monumental cities whose colossal structures seemed beyond human capability, suggesting that only non-human entities possess the strength and skill for such monumental tasks. Certain well-known narratives, later elaborated in theological traditions, hint at the jinn's architectural prowess, serving under the command of ancient powerful figures. The genesis of human awareness regarding jinn and the subsequent spread of their myths is a complex interplay of natural phenomena, psychological predispositions, cultural exchange, and the codification of oral traditions into written works. It wasn't a singular event but a gradual development rooted in humanity's innate need to explain the inexplicable. The earliest form of awareness likely stemmed from humanity's direct interaction with, and dependence on, the natural world. Before scientific understanding, many natural phenomena were attributed to unseen forces. Mysterious natural events, the howling of wind through canyons, the shimmering heat haze over the desert creating mirages, the sudden onset of localized dust storms, the eerie silence of a vast desert night, or the inexplicable rustling in an empty tent. These occurrences, lacking immediate rational explanation, were prime candidates for attribution to unseen intelligent beings. The sheer power and unpredictability of desert phenomena could easily evoke a sense of a living, powerful, yet hidden presence. People observed patterns or seemingly random events and sought conscious agency behind them. For example, a sudden, localized whirlwind that seemed to move with purpose might be perceived as a jinn's manifestation or journey. This primal fear and awe of nature's unpredictable power likely solidified the early belief in non-human intelligences residing within it. Unexplained illnesses and mental states. Before modern medicine, conditions like epilepsy, sleep paralysis, often described as being ridden by an unseen entity, mental illnesses, such as severe mood disorders or cognitive disruptions, and even sudden fevers or accidents, often had no obvious cause. Attributing them to malevolent or mischievous unseen entities provided a framework for understanding and, crucially, attempting to counteract them through rituals, incantations, or seeking help from spiritual healers. A person acting erratically might be described as affected by a spirit, highlighting the pervasive belief in direct jinn interference with human minds and bodies. This also served as a social explanation for behaviors that deviated from norms, offering a culturally accepted reason for afflictions that defied physical explanation. The concept of possession provided a means to explain radical personality shifts or irrational actions, attributing them to an external, unseen force. The concept of the hidden realm. In many ancient cultures, there was an inherent belief in a realm beyond immediate human perception, a dimension of existence that ran parallel to the physical world. This unseen dimension was populated by various entities, and the jinn were a prominent part of it. The very term jinn comes from a linguistic root meaning to hide, to conceal, or to cover with darkness, perfectly encapsulating their elusive nature. This linguistic root suggests that their awareness was fundamentally tied to their perceived invisibility and hidden existence. The notion that an entire world existed just out of sight, yet capable of interaction, fueled curiosity and apprehension. Dreams and visions, dreams, prophetic visions, or altered states of consciousness, sometimes induced by fasting, meditation, or natural substances, were often interpreted as interactions with beings from the unseen world. These experiences, deeply personal yet profoundly impactful, could be seen as direct messages or encounters with jinn. The vividness and unusual nature of certain dreams led people to believe they were entering another realm or being visited by its inhabitants. Poets and diviners, as mentioned earlier, claimed their inspiration came directly from these spiritual entities, providing a cultural mechanism for individuals to explain their extraordinary talents or insights and legitimizing their prophetic or poetic authority. These spiritual experiences served as anecdotal proof of the jinn's existence and their capacity to communicate. Once these early perceptions formed, the myth of the jinn was primarily spread through powerful and pervasive oral traditions, which were the backbone of knowledge transfer in pre-literate societies. Storytelling and folklore. In these societies, storytelling was the primary means of transmitting knowledge, history, and cultural beliefs. Tales of jinn encounters, their tricks, their powers, and the ways to appease or avoid them were woven into the fabric of daily life. These stories served not only to entertain but also as cautionary tales, moral lessons, and explanations for the natural world. A grandmother might tell her grandchildren not to wander too far into the desert at dusk, warning of the jinn who dwell there, reinforcing the belief through vivid narrative and fear. These narratives often explained local landmarks, strange sounds, or peculiar events, attributing them to jinn, thus providing a coherent narrative framework for environmental mysteries. The repetition and embellishment of these stories across generations solidified the myths. Poetry and prognostication. The esteemed role of poets and soothsayers in early Arabian society played a crucial role. These individuals were highly influential, often seen as intermediaries between the human and unseen worlds. When they publicly attributed their extraordinary abilities or knowledge to spirit companions, it lent significant credibility to the existence of these entities. Their verses, often recited widely at tribal gatherings and markets, popularized narratives and characteristics of jinn, making the concept more concrete and widespread. The spirit companion as a source of poetic inspiration became a common trope, suggesting a direct, albeit hidden, link between humans and the unseen. This practice elevated the jinn from mere superstitions to a legitimate source of divine or profound knowledge. Cultural practices and rituals. The very existence of rituals and practices aimed at warding off or interacting with jinn, for example, specific blessings when entering a new home, leaving offerings in certain places, or using specific amulets believed to repel negative energies, served as a constant reinforcement of their reality. These practices were learned from a young age, embedding the belief deeply within the cultural consciousness. These were not just abstract beliefs but practical components of daily life, reinforcing the perceived presence and influence of jinn. The efficacy, or perceived efficacy, of such rituals further perpetuated the belief. Cross-cultural exchange. As traders and travelers moved across vast regions, connecting different early civilizations and tribes, they exchanged not only goods but also stories, beliefs, and myths. The concepts of powerful, unseen entities likely diffused between various cultures through these interactions, adapting to local environments and specific cultural practices. The commonality of such beliefs across diverse societies lent them an air of universality and truth. This process allowed the core idea of jinn to spread, while local variations developed based on distinct environments and experiences. The advent of a major monotheistic faith in the 7th century marked a pivotal moment in the formalization and widespread acceptance of jinn as a definite aspect of creation. This tradition did not invent the jinn but rather integrated existing beliefs into a comprehensive theological framework, clarifying their nature and role. Sacred texts. A foundational sacred text explicitly mentions these beings numerous times, including an entire section dedicated to them. This divine affirmation elevated the jinn from mere folklore to a theological reality. When this text described their creation, from a specific form of energy or substance, different from humans and angels, their free will, and their moral accountability, it provided a definitive, divinely sanctioned framework for understanding them. This eliminated any ambiguity regarding their existence for adherents of this faith, making belief in jinn an article of doctrine. The text even narrates instances where these beings listened to and were affected by the words of a prophet, demonstrating their capacity for spiritual understanding and choice. This inclusion gave jinn a fixed place in the cosmic hierarchy. Prophetic narratives. The teachings and practices of a central prophetic figure further elaborated on the nature of jinn, their interactions with humans, and ways to seek protection from their potential harms. These narrations, meticulously preserved and transmitted by generations of scholars, provided practical guidance and cemented the belief in the jinn as a part of everyday life. For instance, these teachings mention these beings consuming certain remnants of human food, or warnings about necessary invocations before entering places often associated with their presence, like lavatories or abandoned areas. They also detail instances of these entities attempting to acquire knowledge from forbidden sources, like celestial conversations, before being driven away. These detailed accounts provided a concrete guide for how to perceive and interact with the jinn. Scholarly interpretations and cosmology. Following the sacred texts and prophetic narratives, religious scholars throughout history wrote extensively on the Jinn, classifying them, discussing their abilities, and outlining permissible and impermissible interactions with them, for example, forbidding seeking help from them through magic or sorcery, which is considered a grave transgression. These scholarly works help to standardize and disseminate knowledge about the Jinn, integrating them into broader religious cosmology and jurisprudence. Medieval spiritual texts and philosophical treatises often included sections on Jinn, further solidifying their place in the intellectual landscape and ensuring their continued relevance within scholarly discourse. Debates arose regarding their exact nature, capabilities, and the ethics of human interaction with them. Popular storytelling and global dissemination. While not a religious text, a well-known collection of Middle Eastern folk tales, often translated as the Arabian Nights, played an enormous role in popularizing the concept of Jinn globally, especially in the Western world. Stories like Aladdin and the Lamp and the Fisherman and the Spirit vividly depict Jinn, often termed genies in Western translations, drawing from earlier concepts of guardian spirits, albeit in a highly fictionalized and often simplified manner. These tales, translated and adapted across cultures, introduce the idea of powerful, wish-granting spirits to a much wider audience, though often divorcing them from their complex theological and cultural roots and focusing purely on their magical attributes. This popularization, while distorting the original concept, ensured the Jinn's widespread cultural recognition. Today, beliefs about Jinn are incredibly diverse, shaped by centuries of theological interpretation, local folklore, popular culture, and even individual experiences. This tapestry of belief highlights the adaptive nature of spiritual understanding within different contexts and how traditional narratives continue to resonate. For the vast majority of adherents of a particular global faith, Jinn are not mythical creatures but a tangible reality, a part of the divine creation whose existence is unequivocally affirmed by their sacred texts and prophetic teachings. While theological teachings emphasize their free will and moral accountability, popular beliefs often lean into their more supernatural and sensational aspects. Jinn are still sometimes blamed for unexplained illnesses, particularly mental health conditions, often described as possession or being touched by a spirit, chronic misfortunes, financial ruin, and other calamities. This attribution often stems from a lack of scientific understanding or a cultural predisposition to seek spiritual explanations for life's challenges, especially when conventional remedies fail. This leads to the widespread practice of spiritual healing performed by religious scholars or practitioners to remove perceived spirit influence, a practice that emphasizes the power of sacred verses, supplications, and spiritual purification to ward off or expel negative influence. Many cultural taboos and superstitions revolve around the Jinn, such as avoiding desolate places at night, especially old burial grounds or ancient ruins, being careful not to spill hot water or food on the ground without warning, as it might inadvertently harm a spirit and incur their wrath, as spirits are thought to dwell in crevices and drains, pointing at celestial bodies, as spirits are believed to reside near them and listen to hidden messages, or disturbing them with unclean acts, lest one accidentally anger them. It's believed that Jinn can dwell in human homes, particularly in bathrooms, seen as places of impurity, dark corners, and even within objects, necessitating certain manners, invocations, and cleanliness to avoid disturbing them. Stories are passed down through generations about encounters, both benevolent and malevolent, reinforcing the belief in their presence. In Western cultures, the concept of the Jinn is overwhelmingly filtered through the romanticized and often distorted lens of the genie. This popular image, largely solidified by translations of the Arabian Nights that introduced iconic stories to Europe, depicts Jinn as powerful, wish-granting spirits trapped within magical objects like lamps, rings, or bottles. This portrayal is a significant and often reductive departure from their original Middle Eastern understanding. The genie trope strips the Jinn of their complex moral agency, spiritual dimension, and diverse natures, reducing them to a fantastical tool for human gratification rather than an independent creation with their own purpose and challenges. This simplification ignores the theological nuances, moral struggles, and social structures inherent in the Eastern understanding of Jinn. Popular animated films further cemented this simplified and anthropomorphized image in global popular culture, depicting comical figures who primarily serve as magical servants, focusing almost entirely on the Jinn's supernatural power to grant desires rather than their ethical struggles or their place within a broader spiritual cosmology. This widespread Western interpretation has, in turn, sometimes influenced how Jinn are perceived even within some parts of societies where the original beliefs are prevalent, particularly among younger generations exposed to global media, creating a disconnect between religious texts and popular entertainment. Across the diverse cultures of the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of South Asia, Jinn continue to be central figures in local folklore and oral traditions. These stories often reflect local concerns, moral lessons, and environmental features, serving as cautionary tales, explanations for natural phenomena, or sources of wonder. There are countless classifications of Jinn, often reflecting their perceived nature, power, and preferred dwelling places. Marid, often considered the most powerful and arrogant type of Jinn, capable of immense feats. They are often associated with large bodies of water, oceans, deep wells, mountains, or ancient ruins, places of natural power and mystery. They are the archetypal genies in many folklore narratives, known for their immense strength and capacity for both good and ill, and are often depicted as imposing figures of immense size or terrifying presence. Their tales often feature grand challenges and powerful magical contests, where a hero might attempt to bind or outwit them. Ifrit, generally strong, cunning, and often malevolent Jinn, associated with fire and smoke. They are known for their destructive power and rebellious nature, embodying dangerous forces. They are sometimes depicted with wings, fiery eyes, and grotesque features, making them particularly fearsome. In some stories, they are depicted as fierce warriors or guardians of hidden treasures, especially those buried deep underground or within ancient structures, often requiring a hero to outwit or defeat them through magical or spiritual means. Ghoul, treacherous, shape-shifting Jinn often associated with old burial grounds, desolate places, and even crossroads. They are commonly believed to prey on travelers and consume human flesh, a clear evolution from earlier desert demons and a warning against venturing into dangerous, isolated areas, especially at night. They might appear as beautiful women to lure victims, or as monstrous, decaying figures. Their stories often serve as cautionary tales, emphasizing the dangers of solitude and the unknown. Sela, often portrayed as intelligent, charming, and highly adaptable shapeshifters, usually female. Unlike ghouls, they are generally more tolerant of humans, capable of forming relationships, and sometimes even marrying mortals, blurring the lines between the human and Jinn worlds. However, they can also be mischievous or vengeful if provoked. Their narratives explore themes of forbidden love, the consequences of interspecies relationships, and the inherent differences between human and Jinn societies. Jann, often considered the weakest or most ancient type of Jinn, typically associated with the desert, wind, and appearing as white snakes or scorpions. They are thought to be among the original species of Jinn, and their connection to natural elements highlights the primal roots of Jinn belief, tying them closely to the untamed wilderness. They are sometimes viewed as less dangerous than other types, but still capable of causing harm if disrespected. Shayatan. This is a broad and crucial category for evil Jinn, directly linked to a prime adversary figure. These are the devils and demons who tempt humans and Jinn alike, leading them astray from the righteous path. Their primary purpose is to sow discord, doubt, and commit acts of evil, making them antagonists in both religious doctrine and everyday life. They are the embodiment of moral corruption and actively seek to divert creation from righteousness. These rich folk beliefs include countless stories of Jinn playing mischievous tricks on humans, like hiding objects or causing minor accidents, guarding ancient hidden treasures, often inherited from forgotten kings or powerful sorcerers, building wondrous structures, like hidden cities or underground tunnels, inspiring artists, especially poets and musicians, or even directly interfering in human relationships, causing love or discord through whispers and illusions. The idea of Jinn possessing individuals, causing madness, or instigating physical ailments remains a potent belief in many traditional communities, often leading to the search for spiritual cures through traditional healers or religious rituals, highlighting the persistence of these ancient beliefs in contemporary life. These narratives serve not only as entertainment but also as a means of explaining the inexplicable, imparting moral lessons, and transmitting cultural values and warnings across generations. The Jinn represent a fascinating and complex intersection of theology, ancient history, and human imagination. From their origins as primal elemental spirits to the morally agentive beings of major spiritual traditions, and finally to the simplified, wish-granting figures of Western popular culture, their evolution reflects humanity's ongoing attempt to categorize, understand, and interact with the unseen world. They remain a profound testament to the enduring power of myth and the persistent human fascination with that which lies just beyond our immediate grasp. The Jinn compel us to question the boundaries of the visible, to consider the diversity of creation, and to reflect on the universal struggle between good and evil that transcends even the perceived limits of our own species.